Question 4. A tricky question this, because it's for 6 marks and you've got to try and work out where the 6 marks come from. It's not scaffolded, so it's not broken down into sections. You've got to work out where you're going to get these 6 marks from. Ethane dioic acid is a weak acid, so let's have a look at it. 2 carbons, ethane, dioic, so it's got 2 carboxylic acid groups. And it breaks down, it shows you how it breaks down. What happens is that OH bond breaks. So we've got to work out how the structure of this supports that bond breaking. Look how it's broken. The oxygen has become minus and the hydrogen has become plus. So that OH bond, the electrons from the bond have moved onto the oxygen, have moved away from the hydrogen and onto the oxygen. Maybe that tells you something about the rest of this molecule, that it's helping to pull the electrons from along that bond onto the oxygen. Releasing H+, which would make it a stronger acid if they were to withdraw in that way. Use the concept of electronegativity to justify why the acid strengths of ethane dioic acid and ethanoic acid are different. Well, let's have a look at ethanoic acid. Ethanoic acid hasn't got the rest of this group here. It's got a CH3 group. So again, the OH bond has got to break. And the electrons have got to move onto the oxygen. But this CH3 here is not going to help because that repels electrons. It's going to push electrons the other way. So instead of moving the electrons onto the oxygen and releasing the H+, that CH3 is actually going to push them the other way and not move them onto the oxygen. It's actually going to push them onto the hydrogen. So let's have a look where some of these 6 marks come from. First of all, the first mark will come from the fact that it's saying that they've both got a COOH bond, COO, a carboxylic acid group, whereas ethane dioic acid has got 2 carboxylic acid groups compared to the 1 in ethanoic acid. That's where the first mark will come from. Both carboxylic acid group with COOH groups, but in ethanoic acid there's a CH3 and only 1 carboxylic acid group, but in ethanoic acid there are 2 carboxylic acid groups. So you'll get 2 marks for saying any of those 2 out of those 3. And then you've got to say that this part of the molecule in ethanoic acid has oxygens, and oxygens withdraw electrons. They're electronegative. So these carbon to oxygens and carbon to oxygen here and will pull electrons. So this section of the molecule will pull electrons towards itself and will help break that bond by moving the electrons onto the O, making O- and H+. So the oxygens in this section of the molecule here are very electronegative, and the oxygen atoms withdraw electrons. Whereas in ethanoic acid, the CH3, as I've said, is going to repel electrons, move electrons away from it, and actually won't facilitate, won't help breaking that bond. It will push electrons the other way rather than moving them onto the oxygen. The OH bond in ethanoic acid is more polarized. It means that the H+ becomes more delta plus. In other words, the electrons are being withdrawn, and this gets a large delta minus and a large delta plus, almost ready to break. There's more dissociation into the H+ ions. In other words, the OH bond is weakened and going to release H+ because this section of the molecule is withdrawing electrons. Very delta minus, very delta plus here, very delta minus, very delta plus, and the electrons will more likely move onto the oxygen and break that bond and release H+. So there's more dissociation. That means dissociation means breaking up of the molecule to make H+. And therefore ethane dioic acid is the stronger of the 2 acids.